Welcome back. So what do you think now? By any measure, it has been an extraordinary day. It started with the compelling testimony of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford before the question was she credible? Would she be under the bright lights of the Senate Judiciary Committee? And the answer was yes. As for Judge Kavanaugh, how would he respond? Could he walk the fine line between righteous indignation and showing the emotional toll the allegations have taken on him and his family? And the answer also is yes, he did. Joining us for more are Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report and Sarasota employment attorney Sarah Blackwell. And thank you both for joining us. But I guess my main take from this hearing, and we'll talk about what he said, what she said a little bit later, is if you were seeking to find out, to the best of our ability, what happened here, this hearing was not designed to do so. Sarah?
No, I didn't think so. And you wouldn't be able to know in 9 hours with no witnesses and no evidence. And whenever the Republicans were questioning Dr. Ford, they had the woman who was questioning them, and then the other people were just saying how great she was and what a hero. And then it was the same for whenever he came out. It was, you know, the Democrats asking questions and the Republicans saying, I'm so sorry you have to go through this. I didn't find that either side was really trying to find out the truth, and on both sides.
Well, you say either side here, but there were other options. There were options to bring in other witnesses,
sure,
especially the guy who was supposedly also in the room.
Who said he wasn't going to testify or say anything until after the hearings were over.
Then what was this all
about? What is that about? Yeah, exactly. This was just a show. This is to say that they're just a little better than they were when Anita Hill was testifying before the Senate. That's all it was. You want to talk about righteous indignation? Look at Lindsey Graham and his outburst, his scripted outburst.
Hold on 1 second. I think, Greg, tell me if we have that soundbite queued up. If we do, let's take a look. Go.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics.
Well, there are a lot of shams going on.
Yeah.
I mean, he may be right. The Democrats may be intending to keep this seat open if they can be. But on the other hand, you know, this was not a real investigation in terms of going back some almost 30 years, what may have happened.
I agree, and I think that if people knew about it for 35 days or 40 days, I really don't understand why there wasn't a private investigation done. As a victim and as a falsely accused, either one, you would think they both wanted to be privately investigated.
That was up to the President of the United States to ask for the FBI investigation to do that, and we have to take a break here, and when we come back, we'll show you what the President had to say after the hearing. Okay. Our conversation on Judge Kavanaugh's hearing continues. Welcome back. We are talking about the extraordinary day of testimony by Judge Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. And joining us for more are Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report and Sarasota employment attorney Sarah Blackwell. And let's start off with, it did not take President Trump long to tweet about today's hearings, and he said, Judge Kavanaugh showed America exactly why I nominated him. His testimony was powerful, honest, and riveting. Democrats' search and destroy strategy is disgraceful, and this process has been a total sham, an effort to delay, obstruct, and resist. The Senate must vote. Susan, it has been said that up until this point that the President did not like Judge Kavanaugh's
demeanor
in terms of defending himself, and that obviously Judge Kavanaugh gave the President exactly what he was looking for today.
I think it's kind of funny he used the same word as Lindsey Graham did in calling it a sham. I guess they both are following the same script, but his righteous indignation, I mean, I'm just, does it matter? I mean, he's the last person who should comment on anybody's demeanor, let alone anybody's perspective on this whole thing. So
now let's talk about for a moment the day started with really the compelling testimony of Dr. Ford. We did not know prior to this day, because we never saw her on camera, how she would come off. Let's take a quick look.
Indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, and they're having fun at my expense.
Sarah, when you watched that this morning, what was your reaction?
Well, originally I did not believe her at all. I thought she was a pawn for the Democrats, and so when the story came out, I thought this is ridiculous and it's bad for women and bad for real victims. And then watching her testimony, it's hard not to believe her. And the fact that she took a polygraph test and passed, she was really compelling. I thought she was really compelling.
What's interesting, Susan, is I was watching the network coverage, and there were, news out of the White House that, that they thought that this was slipping away from them, and that the Senate, the Republican majority was concerned. But that kind of changed in the afternoon when Judge Kavanaugh started testifying.
Yeah, well, I didn't have the same kind of reaction that she did regarding Dr. Ford. I had a hard time watching Judge Kavanaugh. I really did. I found his logic to this whole thing was just really contrived. So I actually found myself less believing him.
Okay. We have so much more to talk about. We are just getting warmed up on our conversation on Judge Kavanaugh's hearing, and we'll continue after a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about the extraordinary day of testimony by Judge Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. And joining us for more are Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report and Sarasota employment attorney Sarah Blackwell. And Susan, I said off the top that the question would be whether Judge Kavanaugh could walk that fine line between righteous indignation and showing how deeply this whole thing has wounded him.
Yeah.
I thought that he did so. You do not agree.
No, I don't think he had a right to be outraged. I really don't. Even if he is innocent, I think that as a judge, a federal judge, he understands the process. He should have anticipated all of this, and the idea that he's up there crying because he's so wounded about it, I don't think that, he was the only one that's been subject to the righteous indignation of the, since we're using that word a lot tonight, of the public. I mean, look at all the women that were, poorly treated, not just by the public, but by the Senate, by the reps, and everyone else. And so he had no business to complain.
So when we talk about his emotion that he displayed today, let's take a quick look.
Listen to the witnesses who allegedly were at this event 36 years ago. Listen to Ms. Kaiser. She does not know me. I was not at the party described by Dr. Ford.
Sarah?
Well, I'm quite conservative, and I am, politically, but I found that he put me off a lot by his testimony. The crying part, the emotional part, was the only, I really felt for him. I mean, if you're falsely accused, it's hurtful and it's painful, so I got that. But, he came off to me as a really smart judge who is a drunken frat boy, just by what was coming out. Whether he did what he's being accused of or not, that was my impression after the hearing.
So for all our viewers who are getting quite perturbed with you right now, you take issue with Dr. Ford as well.
I do, because they kept saying, the Democrats kept saying, you're such a hero, you're so incredible, you're so wonderful, and it irritated me because it is hard as a woman to speak out when you're a victim, but that's a character trait of a man, and if she's telling the truth, and she was 15 whenever that happened, that's 36 years of more victims. That's 36 years that this man could be hurting other women. And even if you can't say it at 15, at some point you think to yourself, am I the, I want to be able to stop him from hurting other women.
But we have heard so many women, especially over the last 2 weeks, say, I didn't tell my husband for decades. How do you, she said, how was I supposed to tell my parents
'Cause I was
that
drinking.
I was drinking, I was at home with boys? This is something that unfortunately has happened a lot over the decades, and even back then, we had a different way of thinking about it.
It's fine. I'm not saying that, you can be a victim and not speak out. That's perfectly understandable. But don't say you're a hero. That's what irritates
So
me.
I don't think the hero is more than anything than recognizing the fact that she's willing to come on national television and to be basically torn apart by an entire Senate, judged specifically on the character, and the whole question is, why didn't she come out so long ago? And when we look at victims of sexual assault, a lot of times they don't know that this is happening. They don't think, oh, this guy is probably doing it all the time. They think it's that one-time thing that they probably contributed to. So why would it happen again? You know, I personally was a victim of sexual assault at the age of 11. It wasn't made public until I was 22, and the only reason it went public is because two things. One, I had blocked it from my memory for so long, and I didn't realize that there was other victims, and it was the other victim that came to me and asked me if it happened to me. And let me tell you something, it brought back so many bad memories that I went through years of therapy before I could talk about it again. So don't judge somebody just because they don't say something. On the same token, just like what you just said, I know that if I'm not vocal now and if I hide it, it's going to continue because it's going to make it difficult for other women to step up. And I think that's important. So let's not label somebody a hero or not a hero or whatever. It's a hard thing that she's doing, let alone to display herself in a public arena.
So, as we stand at this hour, it appears in Washington that people are reverting to their partisan corners here. And there may or may not be a vote to get this nomination out of committee tomorrow without, Sarah, hearing the testimony of the number of other women who are making these allegations right now. You are an attorney that goes after workplace misdeeds here. How would you feel trying to take a case to trial without
In one day.
witnesses
Right.
that would, other witnesses showing similar fact patterns?
There's no way anyone can make a credibility decision on what was given today, and that's it. There's no way. And I don't think either side actually really tried to learn the truth. They were both playing their party side.
I agree.
So I don't think there was a valid investigation.
So the end game, Susan, would be get to a vote on the floor of the Senate as quickly as possible. And it doesn't, and there's been some discussion that the Senate majority has made a calculation that given what's going to happen or is perceived to be happening in terms of the midterms, we better do this now because we're unsure whether at this point we're even going to have a Senate majority after January.
I'm sure that's exactly what they're thinking, but what an incredible injustice to rush this vote. I'm sorry, but you know, both Sarah and I believe in due process. Due process, even if it comes out through the end of that investigation that he's completely innocent and deserves a great apology. What does it say about the system and what does it say about the Senate? So I would be horrified if they're going to cast a vote tomorrow. And what's more important is this is an appointment for life. For life. This deserves a higher level of scrutiny than what we give just anyone else.
All right, so Sarah, you are the conservative Republican here. What would you do right now if you were the Republican senator from Florida?
Well, I would definitely, I believed whenever they kept saying, you know, they knew about this for 35 days, they've known about this, why didn't you investigate? It should have been done. Yes, that's true. But I don't think another week or 2 weeks to get a proper investigation for someone who is appointed for life is a horrible thing. I think knowing the truth is most important. I don't think that they did the right thing by waiting to the last second, and I don't know whose decision it was. I don't care. I think that this public thing was unfair to both sides.
But put your hard-hatted political hat on right now, because here's the thing.
Yeah,
If they-
put your position as a woman aside and let's talk politics. I don't mean.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get back to our final thoughts in a moment, so stay with us. And our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. So, Sarah, what I was trying to put to you, let's say you were the Republican senator from Florida. You say here you want to hear other witnesses and you want a real investigation here, but I'll give you the political reality here. If they withdraw Kavanaugh, there is no time likely to name a replacement and have it voted on before January. And there is a growing possibility that the Republicans will lose the Senate. And frankly, I would not be surprised if the Republicans lose the Senate. They are not going to give Donald Trump another member on the Supreme Court. Does that change your opinion?
Yes, then I would vote for Kavanaugh because I do agree with his opinions, his values, his politics, his legal opinions, and just because he's a drunken frat boy, I can swallow that. And do I know whether or not these allegations are true or not? I don't know. But based on what you're saying, yes, I would vote
I don't
for
have
him.
to ask you for yours.
Oh, but I'm going to give you one anyway, because I am concerned. Even if these allegations are false, and I don't believe they are, it shows you his position on women and how he respects them and how it'll infiltrate his decisions and what position it'll keep women from here until the time that he's no longer in the Supreme Court. And I want to remind you, again, it is a lifetime appointment, and his decisions will impact it. And I think these hearings show exactly what his positions are on women.
Hold on one second. Are you saying that based upon his reaction in response to the allegations of sexual assault, or what you perceive his opinions are on women prior to this?
I think his whole demeanor. From the time when he was in high school on, you're forgetting that there's other women that have come out who have the credibility that even Judge Kavanaugh has, who have passed the clearances, who have really big careers in Washington, who have said, oh yeah, it actually gets worse. He has a roommate that says even if that didn't happen, his attitude towards women is horrible. So yeah, I do take exception, and I don't think he deserves to be on the Supreme Court.
This is going to cut both ways, Sarah, but I got to be honest with you that people say this is the problem with conservatives that on a whole host of issues surrounding this administration, that you know of the president's failings in terms of moral issues, but the greater good has been the Supreme Court, and you'll live with anything because that's most important to you.
Well, I think that there are very important issues that are decided by the courts, and I would want someone who has the same values I have on the court.
Even if they did
We're
this in high
drunken
school.
frat boys, or
Worse.
because I don't know one way or the other.
But that's the thing. If you even have an inkling of doubt, you know, if you're not like Dr. Ford is 100% certain, then he is not your person. He's just not. And the Senate needs to recognize that as well. And I'm sorry that they're going to put the health and safety and welfare of women that they care about, their daughters, their wives, their sisters, you know, their mothers, on the sideline so they can have another conservative judge.
We have to leave it there. But just a quick comment. A lot of us were glued to our televisions today, and it has been said, just like the Anita Hill hearings 27 years ago, we'll always remember where we were when we watched today's hearing. Now, believe her, don't believe her, even believe her and still think Brett Kavanaugh should be confirmed to the Supreme Court, all legitimate points of view, but I gotta say, some of the comments I saw on social media today while the hearing was taking place raised more questions about us than it did about her or him. And the Academy Award for Best Actress in a Politically Motivated Role goes to guess who? Roger wrote. Every man is at risk if this lady wins, says Zach. Really, Zach? Congress's approval stands at 18% according to Real Clear Politics average, and between you and me, that seems high. What about our job approval? Not one of us can say we know what happened here, but it's not good enough to say I believe her or I don't. I support Judge Kavanaugh and I feel terrible for him and his family. I am mad and this seems unfair. What isn't fair or right are the ugly ways too many of us feel empowered to express ourselves online about Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh. Be better. I think I heard that somewhere. We want to thank our guests for being here tonight, Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report and Sarasota employment attorney Sarah Blackwell.